Hi, I'm Jaclyn.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
Welcome back to hopefully what is a good audio quality episode, because last week's may have been a little rough, so we do apologize for that. Courtney and I finished recording and found out that my mic just played this awful, I don't even know how to
Static.
Yeah.
White noise. It was really, really bad, guys. You basically couldn't hear Jaclyn talking, and it would have sounded better if she would have just farted into the microphone for a solid 40 minutes.
Yes, exactly. It would have been, you couldn't even hear me in some portions. So it was really bad. So I got a new mic, so hopefully it sounds good. And then I also got to re-record my parts and talk to myself for 45 minutes, pretending to have a conversation with Courtney. So that was a good time, and I don't recommend it. I don't really want to do it again, so hopefully we don't have that issue anymore.
Yeah, hopefully the new mic fixes it, and I think it was one of those things where I knew that you had re-recorded, so when I listened, I was could tell, but I was I think if someone who doesn't know listens, you can't tell at all. You know, one of those things, those little mind trick things.
Yeah, because you knew what happened, and maybe you guys can tell too. I'm sorry, we still got the story told, so it's all good, and hopefully it'll be better from here on out because I have a new mic that sounds better, so it's great.
Great things happening on the Caffeinated Crimes front.
Exactly.
On the true crime front, we have a few updates. We have one could be possibly exciting update. So we've kind of talked about the Delphi Murders, which is one I've wanted to cover, but I want to wait until it's resolved.
Yeah.
But there is a possible suspect. So it's a man named James Chadwell, and he's originally from La Follette. If you remember an episode very back in the beginning, we did a case from La Follette. But he was arrested for kidnapping and assaulting another little girl. He had her tied up in his basement when they found her.
Oh.
And they found out that he sounds like the guy. He looks like the guy. I don't know about the walk. They haven't seen shown a video just to see if he has that kind of awkward walk. He would have been very close to living close to where it happened. He also has a tattoo, and I will send it. I'm about to send it to Jaclyn right now, live recording because I meant to before. And it looks just like Libby.
Oh gosh. Oh goodness.
Okay. I just sent it to you.
Oh.
Just like her.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't like that. That makes me uncomfortable.
So it's looking like he could be a very, very good suspect for this. He already has this, for sure, kidnapping and assault of this little girl who thankfully lived. And it's very, very possible that he could be it. He looks a lot like the sketch. So
yeah.
Hopefully for those girls, we can get this case resolved and get their families some justice.
I hope so, because that one is just so rough, and just anyone who's listened to those tapes, it's just so chilling and terrifying, and hopefully he is the one so some justice can be done for sure.
Yeah, because those girls did the most, recording him, taking pictures, and I'm sure that there is a lot more video we haven't seen of that crime.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So they did everything they could to get this guy identified, and hopefully we can break it. So
agreed. Also, speaking of justice, I'm sure everyone remembers a little over a year ago, Ahmaud Arbery was murdered while going for a run in his neighborhood. So those three men have officially been charged with hate crimes now. So that's Travis and Gregory McMichaels and William Bryan. So they did add on the hate crime charge to their previous charges. So that's definitely a good thing and moving in the right direction of what you want to see.
Yeah, and if you want to hear us talk a little bit more about that, we did cover that in our 2020 recap on our Patreon.
Yep.
It's a video episode. We don't do a full detail thing, just a little bit, but we talked a little bit about it. If you want to go over to Patreon and listen to that.
Just going to plug that on in there for you.
Plug away.
And again, it's a video episode, so if you want to see what we look like when we're talking to each other, if you want to hear... Fun fact, this happened, we recorded this during an ice storm.
Oh, yeah.
And so a couple times ice crashed right outside the room. So you see our real live reactions and it was a good time. So, definitely check that out.
It was pretty good. We don't know how to video edit, so that's all just raw footage. So
You just get what you get.
yeah. So as we like to do, we usually like to give you your true crime updates, and then we give you a true crime story, and it's all sadness. So we always try to find some funny story to kind of put in here right before. And boy, do we have a good one.
Oh, it's a good one.
So on the podcast Instagram, I was looking because there was like a message and it said there was a request. And usually we get these requests, they're just spam. So I opened it and I saw that there was like a link, but I was like ignoring it because it's usually spam. And I was reading and it was like, we want your podcast to like try out this kit and be a, sponsor, like whatever. And I was like, interesting. So then I look at the link and it's like smoothmyballs.com. And I'm like, whoa. And I'm pretty sure this is just like a manscaping kind of thing. But I'm like, ma'am, we don't have balls. And anyone who knows true crime, the majority of listeners are women. I mean, there's men too, but a lot of it's women. I don't think we're your target audience. No. Like maybe go over to Joe Rogan or something because he seems more likely to have listeners who would want smooth my balls. So
yeah, when we said that we like wanted to get some sponsors, that's not exactly what we meant. So
yeah, but it gave me such a good laugh. I texted Jaclyn. I was like, you have to go read this. I was like, I'm not going to tell her what it is. Like, you just have to experience
she's
this.
like, go read this message on Instagram. And I'm like, oh no. Because we've gotten a few doozies before that I was like, oh boy, what just happened? I was like, oh, that was not what I expected.
Yeah. And usually, like, the spam is just like, ooh, come check out my page. I'd love to be with you. Or blah, blah, blah. Like, all the, like, sexual requests you always get.
Yep.
But, yeah, that one was quite funny. So thank you to whoever sent that because it gave me a much-needed laugh.
Yes, we did appreciate that. So now to bring it down like we tend to do. So this was a request from one of our listeners and Courtney's friend, John. So thank you, John, for bringing this to our attention. It wasn't one I hadn't heard of. I don't think Courtney had heard of it.
I hadn't heard of it either, no.
So we were very intrigued to learn about this case, and hopefully you guys learn something new as well. So our sources for this episode were a 48 Hours episode called In Jason's Name, a couple of Irish articles. There's the Journal, the Dispatch, and the Independent, which are all .ie websites. Scottish, not Irish.
They're Irish.
Nope, Irish.
I was like, Jaclyn, it says Irish news.
Woo! Okay, so... Yep, those sources. In the early morning hours of August 2nd, 2015, 30-year FBI veteran Tom Martin called 911 and said his daughter and son-in-law had gotten into a fight, and he intervened and his son-in-law was severely hurt. When police arrived, his daughter Molly and his son-in-law Jason's bedroom was covered in blood, and Jason had been severely beaten to death with most of the wounds on his head. So Jason Corbett was from Limerick, Ireland, and he married a woman named Mags Fitzpatrick when he was 27 years old, and they had 2 children together. They named them Jack and Sarah, which I thought were just, like, adorable, like, classic names.
Yeah, they really are.
Unfortunately, Mags died of a sudden asthma attack when their son was 2 and their daughter was only 12 weeks old. So she's in her late 20s and just dies of a sudden asthma attack, which is so tragic. So the next year, Jason decided he needed some help, as being a widower and working full-time with 2 very young children was obviously proving to be very difficult. So he hired 25-year-old au pair named Molly Martens from Knoxville, Tennessee. Molly moved from the United States to Ireland in March of 2008 to work for Jason. So Molly had dropped out of Clemson University and was looking for the next step in her life when she found Jason's advertisement looking for an au pair. Her brother described her as kind and altruistic. Everyone said that Molly was great with the kids, Jack and Sarah, and it wasn't long before a romantic relationship developed between Jason and Molly, and Jason proposed on Valentine's Day in 2010. So Jason was able to get a transfer with the packing company he worked for in Ireland, and the couple moved to Winston-Salem, North Carolina with the kids. Molly then started working as a part-time swim instructor, but she spent most of her time caring for the children who just adored her. The children soon started calling Molly Mom because they were too young to remember their biological mom, and Molly was just the only mom they ever knew. Friends and family on both Molly and Jason's side said that their relationship grew tense after moving to the United States. They often got into verbal altercations, and Jason told his sister that he wasn't happy and he wanted to move back to Ireland with the children. Although the children considered Molly their mom, Jason wouldn't allow her to legally adopt them because he said he didn't trust her. So that's kind of interesting.
That is very interesting.
Which, I mean, I get, like, your kids come first, and so maybe he's like, I don't want to allow this woman to legally adopt them, and then if something happens between the two of us, now she has a chance to get my kids that are my kids. I mean, I can understand that.
I guess that part does make sense. I just thought, if this was your nanny, your kids call her mom, and you're marrying her, you would hopefully have a higher level of trust.
Exactly. So the night Jason was killed, Tom and Molly were taken to the police station for questioning. So Tom told police that he had been spending the night at their home and Jason had gone to bed drunk, but that everything was pretty calm. Later, he had woken up to a commotion between Jason and Molly. Tom went to investigate and make sure that everything was okay, and he said when he walked in their bedroom, Jason's hands were around Molly's throat. So, fearing for his daughter's safety, Tom said that he grabbed a nearby baseball bat and hit Jason with it until he felt that he was no longer a threat. So, his daughter Sarah had woken up with a nightmare, and Jason was angry that he was woken up. And so, basically, that's what Molly and Tom said kind of prompted the fight between Molly and Jason. And Molly said the same thing when she was interviewed separately. Molly also said that Jason was choking her and tried to hit her, but she was able to grab a brick that was on her nightstand and hit Jason in the head with it. She said her and the kids were painting bricks for the yard, so that's why it was just like out on her nightstand, because that's kind of a weird thing to just have on your nightstand.
I will say I have quite a few weird things on my nightstand too, though. I have to admit, I'm one of those people that I'll carry something somewhere and then just set it down and forget about it for a while. Not a brick, but...
So, what is on Courtney's nightstand currently?
Okay, well, I just cleaned recently, so right now it's only my Hydro Flask water bottle, which could probably do some damage.
I mean, I feel like that could do as much damage as a brick, for sure. Oh, are you not going to share what's normally on your nightstand?
Oh. Well, see, it's random things.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes there's a mug, sometimes there's a book, sometimes there's clothes. For a while, there was like a pumice stone for my feet. Because I'll get Amazon packages and I'll just set them down somewhere.
Wherever it happens to be. I understand that. So Molly said that Jason had been abusive, both emotionally and physically, for a long time. Molly did have a light red mark on her neck and small bruises that supported her story. Her dad, Tom, had no defensive injuries. And the autopsy revealed that Jason had received at least a dozen blows to the head, many in the same spot, so the skull was severely fractured. So just like 12 times repeatedly banging him on the head in the same spot. So the children were also interviewed separately, and Sarah confirmed that she had woken up with a nightmare and Molly was trying to keep her quiet so that her dad wouldn't wake up because it would be, quote, really bad if he woke up. So when the interviewer asked her what she meant by that, Sarah said sometimes her dad got very angry when he was woken up at night. Both Jack and Sarah said that their dad had hit Molly a few times and that they argued often. The children also confirmed the story that they had been painting bricks for the yard and one of them was left in Molly's bedroom. So again, confirming that odd thing that was on the nightstand. So initial investigators told Molly and Tom that they believed that this would be considered self-defense. So Jason's sister Tracy was the children's legal guardian in the event of Jason's death, so she flew to North Carolina and filed for custody after learning that he had died. Tracy believed that the children's statements about the abuse had been coached by Molly and Tom. Molly had also filed for custody as she believed that she had a legal claim to the children as their stepmother. When the children were interviewed after Jason's death, Jack said that his aunt and uncle were trying to take him away from his mom. Because again, these kids were so young when Molly and Jason got together that they don't know any other mom. And they're like, why is my aunt, that I probably don't really know very well because they live in Ireland, trying to take me away from my mom?
Yeah, and like I would feel like too, especially after, Jason is murdered, killed, whatever. Yep. We'll discuss it later. Like you would want the easiest transition for the kids.
Yeah.
They just lost their dad, so it's like, maybe just don't rock the boat just yet.
Give us some time to finish investigating. But, I mean, if they feared for the kids' safety, obviously that's a different situation. But the kids were removed from Molly's home and taken to stay with Tracy in her hotel room while the custody battle continued. Custody was eventually awarded to Tracy because Jason had made sure in his will that she was the legal guardian. So even though Molly's like, look, I'm their stepmom, I've raised them, in Jason's will, it was very clear, so that's what happened. So Tracy did move the children back to Ireland with her, and Tracy does not believe that Jason was ever violent with Molly and is convinced that his death was murder and not self-defense. Tracy believes that the night of his death, Molly found out that he was planning on leaving her and moving back to Ireland with the children, and that's why she murdered him.
Did she have any basis for this claim?
No.
Do you know? So she's just saying Jason was going to leave her.
I think this is what happened.
I just wanted to make sure because I was like,
yeah,
I never saw anything about, any basis or if it was just her being like, I bet it was this.
Because he had told her before that he was planning on it. And so then in her mind, she's just like, oh, this must be what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I have an uncle who said he's going to get divorced like 7 times and they're still together. So
right, exactly.
Clearly that's not.
So Molly had recordings on her phone of verbal arguments with Jason saved as proof of the abuse. So I guess she wanted to be able to use that in court if something came up with like custody of the children or something. Like she wanted to show that he had been verbally abusive to her. So she did have those recordings. So we are going to insert it here.
Are you finishing your dinner, hon? I'm talking to you. Is this how you treat? This is when you just ignore me? I said I'd like to have dinner with my family. I'm talking to you. I shouldn't have to say lover. I shouldn't have to say Molly.
Can you guys get out the stuff for me?
See, here you go again. I'm talking to you and you're still then I'm talking about something else.
So Tracy believes that Molly started arguments with Jason and then started recording when he started yelling back, and that she was going to use this for evidence if they ever got a divorce to get custody of the children. That she wanted to prove that Jason was an unfit parent, but she thinks basically that she started these fights, got him like super mad, and then just started recording in the middle so you only get his reaction and nothing from her. Which, I mean, could be a possibility for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And Molly's friends said she was distraught at losing the children after Tracy received custody and moved them away. And after going through therapy in Ireland, Jack then told investigators that his father had never been abusive towards Molly, and that after his father's death, Molly had told him that he needed to lie if he ever wanted to see her again. So Molly and her family believe this statement was coached by Tracy, which, I mean, either of these could be so true. I think you'll see this in this case where it's very hard to determine, like, what is the truth.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially, with the ages of the children, like, it's very clear they were coached in one statement or the other. You just don't know which one.
And they're probably going through, like, a lot of trauma, too. And so maybe, you know, Tracy's like, well, if this happens, you'll never see me again. You gotta, it's very easy to sway the children. And it's very odd that once they've been with Tracy for a while, this comes out. Or it could be they're safe now, so that it comes out. It's so hard to tell what happened.
Exactly. And it's like, did this statement come up through good therapy where they were actually able to process their feelings, or did this statement come up through coercive therapy where they basically say, this is what actually happened to you when it really didn't? Again, either way here.
Yeah. So Jason's family claimed that they had uneasy feelings about Molly after they moved to the United States. So they were married in Molly's hometown of Knoxville, Tennessee. Go Vols, shout out. And Jason's family said that Molly was very distant and did not spend a lot of time with them when they came to the wedding all the way from Ireland. Which I could get, but I also know at weddings, the happy couple is usually tossed around and does not have time with anybody. So
exactly.
They also said Molly was very controlling of Jason and just seemed angry all the time. And Tracy was also left unsettled after one of Molly's bridesmaids told her that Molly had mentioned knowing Jason's first wife, Mags, before she died of cancer. So, of course, Mags did not die from cancer. She died from an asthma attack, and Molly had never met her. And so Tracy was very upset by this specific incident, But again, this is one of those, she heard it from someone and she is saying it, so could she have misunderstood? Could the bridesmaid have misunderstood the situation? Could she have overheard it? You know, it's not clear-cut evidence, again, of anything.
Yeah, it seems like a very, like, she's, like, really hung up on this one specific instance. Like, in her mind, this is the thing that was, like, click, something's wrong with Molly. And it's like, okay, well, again, you didn't hear it directly from Molly. Like, there could have been some lost in translation thing. Like, the bridesmaid could have been drunk and just have no idea what she's talking about. Like, I know I've heard plenty of things, like, about myself from, like, friends and family members that I'm like, I never said that. That never happened. That,
yeah.
Who knows how it came to be. But if you had told somebody else that and they just completely believed it and hated me because of it, like, it's just a little odd.
And Molly could be a pathological liar, but doesn't mean she's a murderer either. I mean, it's very possible that she just lied about things. Like, I think we all know people who just lie about stupid shit. So it's like...
Exactly. For no reason. Or it could have been malicious and Molly murdered Jason. You know? I don't know.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. We don't know. If only. So Molly's ex-fiance also revealed that Molly had migraines and insomnia, and she struggled with mental health issues, and she had been diagnosed with depression before meeting Jason. So in January of 2016, Tom and Molly were charged with second-degree murder 5 months after Jason's death, and they did go to trial together in 2017. So the defense presented evidence that hair was found in Jason's hand, which could support the self-defense theory. And defensive wounds were also present on Jason's left hand, but none on his right. And Molly and Tom said that Jason was choking her with his right hand, so this kind of supported their story as well. And the statements from the children about Jason's previous abusive behavior was not presented, and the children could not be subpoenaed because they were living in Ireland. Not really sure what the whole legal thing is with that. I'm not a North Carolina lawyer, so I don't know. But the jury did end up deliberating for only 3 hours after 9 days of testimony and found Molly and Tom guilty of second-degree murder. And they were sentenced to 20 to 25 years in prison. And after hearing the guilty verdict, Molly turned to her mother and said, "I'm so sorry, I should have just let him kill me." Which is heartbreaking if it was self-defense. Like,
if that's really what happened. Yeah, exactly.
So immediately after the trial, the jury foreman was interviewed about their decision. So the foreman said the jury didn't even have to deliberate at the end because they knew from private conversations which way they were leaning. So this is essentially the jury admitting that they had discussed the case prior to the official deliberations, which went against the judge's orders. So you can't really do that. You're not supposed to talk about the case to anyone, not even your fellow jury members.
Yes, you cannot do that.
Yeah. So the defense filed to have the verdict thrown out, but the trial judge denied the motion. However, a year later, the case went to appellate court over the jury misconduct and other errors in trial. So the defense argued that statements from Jack and Sarah about Jason's history of abuse should have been included in the trial. And the prosecutor argued that children had later recanted those statements, so they shouldn't have been included. Which I don't really get, because I'm like, I feel like you should say both, because then the jury can decide what they think happened, I guess. You know, like, it's important information.
I feel like both are pieces of evidence in this case, so why would you not bring up both of them again? So the jury, whose job it is to determine if these people are guilty or not, has all the information. So yes, you should definitely include both statements.
The defense also argued that blood spatter evidence should not have been included, as it referenced blood spatter on Molly's shorts that were never actually tested and confirmed to be blood.
That's an issue.
Which, why would you not test those shorts?
Yes. Like,
why?
That could be ketchup, that could be a Heinz 57, that could be dirt, like...
You were painting, it could have been paint from that day. I mean, reasonable doubt right there.
Because I think they use, like, that, which... blood spatter evidence is kind of iffy anyway on how reliable it is, but they use that to indicate that she had been, like, standing over him at the time that they were beating him versus, like, more of a self-defense angle. So it's like, that's part of your whole claim of that it was murder versus self-defense, and you don't even know if it was blood. You can't do that.
Yeah. And in 2018, Tracy wrote a book called My Brother, Jason, so that he would be remembered for something other than his murder and being an alleged abuser. In February of 2020, the North Carolina Court of Appeals ruled that Tom and Molly both had grounds for a retrial. As you can hear, there was a lot of stuff that just was not going right in this trial.
Yep.
So during the first week of April 2021, Tom and Molly were offered a controversial plea bargain in which gave them 7 days to admit to voluntary manslaughter instead of their previous conviction of second-degree murder. And Tom and Molly were transferred from prison to the Davidson County Jail to consider the plea bargain and discuss with their attorneys before making a decision. So just in case this does vary by state, by country, we're going to give you a little bit of information about North Carolina, like voluntary manslaughter. So North Carolina defines voluntary manslaughter as the killing of a person with intent under circumstances which would cause a reasonable person to become emotionally or mentally disturbed. And murder charges can be reduced to voluntary manslaughter under mitigating circumstances. So that's heat of passion, diminished capacity, things like that. And there's generally 2 types of voluntary manslaughter, and so it's heat of passion and imperfect self-defense. So heat of passion, kind of what it sounds like, it occurs when you're in a state of high emotion where the person claims they had no control over their actions. And that means that there must be like no time for the person to cool off. So it couldn't be used, if you see something and then you walk away and come back, like it can't be used then. Mm-hmm. And the classic example of this is, someone comes home and finds their spouse cheating on them, and they immediately murder their spouse's lover, and they assume they didn't have a cooling off period, like it just happened immediately, so that you could use voluntary manslaughter for that. And the imperfect self-defense occurs when a person subjectively believes that the use of force is necessary to defend oneself or another, however, the belief is not objectively reasonable. So essentially the use of force was like not reasonable and resulted in the death of the victim, but that person in the moment thought it was the only option. So kind of, mm-hmm. If it was someone choking you and you're like, I have to kill them, but if you look at it like hindsight, you probably, something like that.
Yeah.
In North Carolina, voluntary manslaughter is a Class D felony with a minimum sentence of 51 months in prison, and that would be a little bit over 4 years. So Tom and Molly have already served 4 years of their prison sentence, so it's likely they would be released within a few years if accepting the plea deal. North Carolina law also allows a victim's family to challenge a plea bargain deal if they feel it has been excessively lenient, and Jason's family has said they do intend to legally challenge the deal if Tom and Molly accept it. They did start a petition on change.org to get public support for blocking the plea deal, and it received 7,500 signatures in the first 72 hours.
Which I had no idea that was a thing, that a victim's family could challenge a plea deal, because, typically as a victim's family, I feel like you're going to find any plea deal to be excessively lenient. So I don't know how they determine whether or not it is.
Because I feel like the only plea deal that the family would be okay with, especially in a murder case, is if it's like life without parole.
Yeah.
Like no chance of parole, you get life. Okay, you don't get the death penalty. We don't have to go through all that. Because, we've heard that quite a few times. Like, families are like, I don't want to have to go through all the, appeals and court dates and all this. So life without parole, just, put them in there and forget them, basically.
Yeah.
And this is where things get a little murky because it's very recent. As you can hear, all that stuff just happened in April. So Tom and Molly have both been released from jail on a $200,000 bond. And the court originally wanted it to be $1 million, but I guess they were like, that's a little too much. They settled on $200,000. So they both paid and they're released. So right now, Tom and Molly are not in jail. Mm-hmm. They're out. They can't have any contact with the victim's family, including the children. They had to surrender their passports and they must attend all court hearings. So I'm not really sure what happened with that 7-day plea deal. I'm assuming either they did not accept it or the family fought it and they weren't having it. So it sounds likely that it's going to be a retrial, but there was this Irish Times article I saw that said the release does not necessarily rule out a plea deal. So I guess maybe another plea deal could be offered. But at the moment, we really don't have any further updates on the plea deal, if it's in the works, if they're just going to do a full retrial. If they did a full retrial, it probably wouldn't be until 2022 just because of COVID and things getting backed up and all that. But that is all the information we currently have on this case. And we will update you guys anything further. And so that is the, I guess I could say, mysterious death of Jason Corbett. Could be murder, could have been in self-defense. I honestly don't know if I could say for sure what I believe in this case.
Same. Yeah, like, I mean, this goes back to, you know, what we talked about with Lacey Peterson, that if I was on a jury, I could not have convicted, but that doesn't mean that I don't think that they did it. I really have I don't think there's enough evidence to prove that it was murder versus self-defense, but I really have no idea. Like, there's so many things in this case that I'm like, I really could see it either way.
Yeah, I feel like if you, like, put me on either side and you're like, defend this, like, I could do an excellent job at either. Because I'm like, I just don't know. I mean, there's the whole thing that, you know, every hit to Jason was in the same spot. And if that's self-defense, that is odd. Because if you're fighting really hard, you know, after you get hit a few times, are you just going to, you know, not be moving? Or are you just going to, you know, but I could also understand, like, maybe the first hit was the fatal hit and then you just kept going because you feared for your life. Like, I have no idea what happened in this case.
Or, it could be a combination of that imperfect self-defense and heat of passion that we talked about. You know, you walk in as a father and you see your daughter being choked. You initially, you know, you're trying to reduce the threat, but I mean, it could just be that you're so angry that it takes a minute for you to even realize, okay, he's down, it's okay. It could have been something like that.
This one is such a tough one. I just do not know what it is, but I really want to hear your guys' opinions. Please let us know. Like, do you think Molly and Tom were completely just murderers and just found an out to, you know, murder him? Or if you think it was self-defense. I don't want to say, you know, oh no, Molly's just faking it, you know, whatever, because if she was a victim of abuse and all that, you know, I don't want to not believe a victim. So
absolutely,
it's a tough one.
Yeah, so definitely let us know what you guys think, because Courtney and I are not sure, and we'd love to hear your thoughts, and we will definitely give you guys an update when it becomes available. So with that being said, Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
Okay, my perk of the week is yesterday I had double kids' birthday parties I had to go, well, didn't have to go to, but went to. I was like, that sounded bad. But yeah, so it was really fun because I got to hang out with like a bunch of littles that I don't get to see often, especially the sweetest Lily who ever lived, Tiffany's daughter. I got to hang out a lot with her, and I got to see her kind of hang out with my nephew Eli, and they were absolutely adorable together. Loved each other.
So
It's the cutest thing. And it was just really nice to, you know, be out in the sun and see people safely, especially now that I have my vaccine and I can be a little, you know, less freaked out being around people. But it was just really nice, especially just to get to hang out with Lily, because the pandemic has deprived me of so much time with her, especially. I get to see my niece and nephew a little bit more, but just with Lily, I don't get to see her a lot. So it was really nice to be able to see everyone, and it was fun.
That is super nice. That is a wonderful perk of the week.
Jaclyn, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is that my in-laws came to visit this weekend, which is always good just because we enjoy seeing them. But they also helped us fix our fence gate, which has been broken since we moved into this house. So you couldn't really use it. It wasn't really a gate. It was bungee corded together, and there were some like cinder blocks, and there was like a temporary fence on top of the fence type situation going on.
Yeah.
So it was a mess, and it was really bad. So basically I always had to like keep an eye on it when like my dogs were out, because they could have like slipped through all of my shenanigans if they had wanted to. We also couldn't use the gate, so we couldn't like get in and out of that yard and all that good stuff. But anyway, I have a very secure fence now with a working gate, both sides open and close and lock, and there's no gaps, and it is just fantastic. So I'm very happy about that, and also very grateful that my in-laws came from 2 different states for a very short weekend just to help us get this fence together. So
yeah, that's awesome.
yeah, definitely. So if you guys want to let us know about your birthday parties and fences and anything else, you know, the usual, you can find us on Instagram at Caffeinated Crimes Pod. If you want to send us notes about, you know, ball wax, whatever.
Smooth my balls.
You know, that's
whatever you want.
We're there. You can also do that on Facebook at Caffeinated Crimes Podcast. Maybe on Twitter at Caff Crimes Pod. That's CAFF Crimes Pod. You can email it to us at caffeinatedcrimespod@gmail.com. Or, you know, maybe if you come on to Patreon, we'll be willing to check out your ball wax. I don't know. That's patreon.com/caffeinatedcrimes, where you can find the 2020 recap video episode that Courtney mentioned, plus extra monthly bonus episodes, Google Hangouts, pin stickers, all kinds of fun goodies. Definitely check us out over there.
Yeah, we've been trying to do a lot and make sure it's worth your money. So please just go check it out. And we're also still doing our Apple Reviews giveaway. I know you guys are sick of hearing me say it, which just means you need to find more people to get us to 50 reviews, and then we'll stop talking about it.
Exactly.
But we want to give whoever that winner is a pin, a sticker, and a $10 gift card to the coffee shop of their choice. So please go do that so we can select one of you lovely, beautiful people to give some coffee, to give a pin, a sticker, all that fun stuff. So yeah, just please go do that. But in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.